Okay. Hello everybody and welcome to the South Wairarapa District Council Licensing Committee. For those of you who may be watching online, I do apologise that our back is turned to you, but that is the limitations of our IT systems in South Wairarapa. If I could ask everybody to be standing while Narita does our opening. Thank you. Just a few health and safety things before we really get started. The emergency exits for this room are the door you came in down the end and the exit behind me here. If we need to evacuate the building, please use one of these exits and assemble outside by the playground. Please remain in the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. In the event we experience any unruly or intimidating behaviour, during the course of the hearing, we will adjourn it until it's safe to reconvene. Members of the panel here and staff will congregate in the office behind me if this action is necessary. If I could introduce myself, I'm Alistair Plimmer and I'm the District Licensing Chair for South Wairarapa. And I'd like to introduce my fellow panel members, Catherine Rossiter-Stead here and Campbell Gillam. Today we are here to consider whether an application for renewal of an alcohol licence meets the objectives of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. The hearing is an inquiry to determine, as required by the Act, if the applicant has met the criteria for the renewal of a manager's certificate. Section 102 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act requires that this hearing be treated as a commission of inquiry under the Commissions of Inquiry Act 1908. This hearing is not a meeting or a discussion. All matters go through the chair and the proceedings are similar but slightly less formal. We'll try and keep it less formal than a court of law. Please bear in mind, however, that unlike a court of law, this is not an adversarial hearing. It is inquisitive and evaluative. And I do expect that any questions from anyone in a kindly tone and as much as possible make the applicant feel comfortable and at ease. And unlike a court, the Sale of Supply and Alcohol Act allows the District Licensing Commission to hear matters which might be considered hearsay, anecdote or opinion. Okay? And if anyone doesn't understand that, please just indicate and we'll explain. I'll guide us through the hearing as we progress, and we've sort of put about 3 hours here, but I'm not sure that it will take 3 hours to go through this. And all parties and witnesses giving evidence will be required to take an oath or affirmation to tell the truth. The applicant in this case is Michael John Katana, a natural person employed by Brutos Limited as Martinborough Brewery as an operations manager undertaking a duty role. Mr. Porter is representing the applicant today, and there is a character witness, Mr. Patel. Welcome. Here for the inspector is Festa Kamato, the environmental health officer, and supported by our alcohol licensing inspector as well. And for the alcohol prevention team from the New Zealand Police is Sergeant Manu. So welcome. And there are no other members of the community here, but there may well be some online. So if you are online, so welcome. Firstly, before we start, are there any pre-hearing issues to attend to? Thank you. Okay, and before we move to the applicant's opening submission, Councillor, do you intend to call any witnesses or for your applicant to provide evidence? Because
I'm really in the committee's hands. Both Mr. Bell and Mr. Katania are really happy to take any questions, but apart from the submission, the affidavits filed, I don't intend to expand on those through any evidence achieved for anything of that nature.
Okay, so the panel has had a quick chat about the evidence that's been submitted from both sides, and we're going to take the documents as read. So when you come up here, please don't lead us through piece by piece on your documents. What we want to know is really what is the key points you want us to take from those, and really highlight the areas where there is a little bit of contention between the two sides. Okay, because that's really what this will come down to is the balance between the two sides submission. Okay. So with that in mind, we'll start now, and you can start with your opening submission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you standing?
Please sit down, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, said to your good chair back in the room something which he was very pleased to hear, which is I've got very little to say today, and hopefully the 3 hours is not needed. Really, I just wish to, in my opening submission, speak briefly to my submissions, which is we welcome the opportunity to be here because on the face of it, it is certainly something, as the inspector says, that should be from District Licensing Committee when there's 2 offences over 2 years, whether there are convictions entered or not. So we welcome the opportunity to be here. So does Mr. Catania, as does Mr. Patel. And really, what I wish to stress today, 2 things. Firstly, the very unusual nature of the first offence that goes back to July 2022, and perhaps I'll speak to that a little later. Or perhaps I can briefly speak to that now, is that in my experience, I have never ever seen that before, that a defendant would go along to a district court, speak to a duty solicitor, and then explain their position to the police actively support a discharge without conviction on the drink driving offence, and then the judge to say, yes, very well, come back, do a defensive driving course and you discharge without conviction on a drink driving charge. And I think that really does go to the point that is a very unusual situation he found himself in, where he was helping a publican that had been assaulted and then drove a very short distance home. So I just want to stress that although on the face of this, it does seem there's 2 offences, drink driving offences in 2 years. Well, yes, and the second is completely accepted at face value for what it is, but the first was very unusual circumstances, very unusual offending. And that is why the police, the credit to the prosecutor, the Masterton District Court and the judge responded as they did. Secondly, and I'm sure this will be the subject of the committee's questions to Mr. Catania, but that is the extraordinary lengths he's gone to since the March 2024 charge, which is now 18 months ago, where he's been completely offence-free. There's been no suggestion of any infringement offences or driving offences or anything of that nature, and police will confirm that. It's all very well saying, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. It's all easy to talk the talk, but what Mr. Catania has done, and you've seen the affidavit evidence that I filed, which was filed in the district court hearing, is at that stage he'd done 137 hours voluntary community work, and he continues to do that. So he's very happy to field questions on how many hours he's done, how that's progressing. But most importantly, for the from a committee's point of view, is he's made meaningful change. He referred to Warwick Pathways Addiction Services, and he acknowledged he had a problem with alcohol. He was using it as a coping mechanism, and he accepted that. And as he says in his affidavit, just wish to read it. Paragraph 11, he said that alcohol is still a large part of my employment, obviously, but it is no longer a large part of my life. And that's the second I really want to drill down, is that he's done everything that could possibly be asked of him with respect since making that foolish decision to drive. Hundreds of hours of voluntary community work, the charity fundraising for free ambulance, and the very meaningful lifestyle changes, including the counselling. So we're very much here in a position where we say, mea culpa, I've done something foolish, done something stupid, I've put myself in this position and I have so much to lose. But what else, what more could I do to remedy that situation? And that's really the thrust of the submissions that I want to make today. Is here's a man that accepts what he's done, trying to put everything right. So we're very pleased to be here. Mr. Catani is very pleased to expand upon anything in his affidavit or anything else that the committee wishes to talk to him or discuss or question him about.
Any questions before we get into the evidence? I just have one. What is the outcome you're actually seeking today?
The outcome we're seeking today, and it may also assist, and Sergeant can confirm this, is we're seeking a renewal, but a truncated period. We accept that it would be proper for it to be a truncated period. Reviewing the case law, it's usually for 18 months, but as I've put forward in my submissions, we accept that a 12-month period would be appropriate. And also, and I've again referenced it in my submissions and have a draft ready to go together, sent, printed and done today, should the committee deem it appropriate, as an undertaking, a statutory declaration or undertaking, that should there be any further offending, and that includes an infringement offence, so drink driving, that's 250 to 400, if there should be any further alcohol-related offending, that he would surrender that manager's certificate immediately. And having had discussions with the police today, and I'll let obviously the sergeant confirm this, but there is no objection from the police to renewal of the manager's certificate as consent for a truncated period on the condition there is that undertaking given. So obviously a matter for the committee, and we don't to put forward a pre-arranged decision, and obviously it has to comply with the Act. That's why we're here. But there's no disagreement that a truncated period on the basis that undertaking is provided is an appropriate outcome from my perspective and the police perspective.
Okay, thank you. Right, do you want to call your witness?
Mr. Cunning, would you mind
Your
Standing, seated.
no, sit there in front of the microphone so it can be heard, and we'll swear him in.
You just like to confirm.
Would you like an oath or information? It's for you to give information. Okay. So can you please state your full name for the record?
Michael John Christopher Catani?
Do you solemnly, sincerely and truthfully declare and affirm that the evidence you're about to give touching the matters before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please have a seat. Okay.
Is there any issue with this, please, being read and then I have to stress certain points, or would you like
Take it as read and then just stress the points that you want us to take it.
Thank you. I'm unfamiliar with the statement, so it feels slightly specific.
Well, I'm just trying to. Well, you can stand if you'd like. I'm just trying to make it easy for everybody to say that yes, yeah, these documents they're public documents. We're accepting what's written in them. It's more for you to stress the points that you want us to particularly take note of in there, and any areas that there might be disagreement between the two sides.
So, Mr. Catani, you provided an affidavit to the court, to the committee, and as you've heard, there's nothing in dispute so much as what you provided. I just want to stress a couple of points as I've indicated in my opening submissions. Could you talk about, you said you take your job very seriously, could you expand on that in terms of your role, not only your current role, but roles throughout your career in the hospitality industry. You say you take it very seriously. Could you expand on that, please?
Absolutely. So I grew up in hospitality industry. My family owned businesses growing up. Worked my way up from dishwasher, busboy, done everything in a restaurant to this point. And I've always had a passion for beer. This is like the marriage of, thank you very much, both of those paths kind of coming to a crux that really is a dream position for me. So getting an opportunity to work at a brewery, which I love the process of making beer. I've got a passion for hospitality and service. Getting into a brewery that is young enough as far as growth to be able to really grow those two has been incredible for me. Great, incredible opportunity. And then I can take that where it started and really be a part of what could potentially be a great business in the near future.
Now, you've also said, about your decade of hospitality experience, which you just alluded to, that you routinely assess situations and ensure customers follow safety guidelines. I've never had an employer ever question my judgment in handling a multitude of situations. Could you please describe to the committee the roles you've had in New Zealand, briefly, and also as a second question, any employment issues you've ever experienced?
So I started my employment career in New Zealand at the Screening Room in Masterton. Worked there for 3 years as a restaurant manager. The only reason I left that job was pursuing my residency application. It could only go so far there, so I had to move on. Yeah, worked great with Eve and John. The people there love me. They take me back in a second. Great experience, learning the differences between what is commonly done as a manager in the US versus New Zealand. And then from there, I went to St. Sebastian. I only worked there for a short time. What I didn't realize, part of the reason I left is it was very nightclub, people drinking too much, and I did not feel comfortable in that situation. I thought it tiptoed too close to out of control too often. With the staff on, it didn't seem reasonable to me to control that situation. Too much drinking. So I got out of there and went to Martinborough Hotel, the Union Square, and I was running that and Crouching Tiger simultaneously as the operations manager, with about 7 managers underneath me. That was great too. It was managing 60 something employees comes with its own stresses and headaches, but it was good. And yeah, there was never any issues in any place. Adam and Nicola would give me references. Same with Caleb at St. Sebastian, as far as controlling all that kind of stuff, drinking and there's a multitude of things that can happen in a restaurant, right? And then when I was working there is when Pankaj met me. I was covering a shift because a manager had to go home early for personal reasons. So I just stepped in and took over for him. And then Pankaj saw me running the shift in a way that he liked. So he brought me over and offered me the job. It has been the best job I've had and maybe ever. It's been great.
So just to confirm, you've never had any employment issues with any licensed premises you've ever moved?
Oh no, they would all take me back in a heartbeat. They've actually most all have offered me positions back since I've left.
Reference in your affidavit that you've made some real strides to improve mind and body and generally improve your relationship with alcohol. the last 18 months. Could you just expand on that point, please?
Absolutely. Rather than using alcohol as a self-medication in stressful times of with the help of pathways and actually doctor's appointments, keeping track of liver function, which in turn makes me pay more attention to diet, but finding healthy avenues. I've got a gym membership now and I go there after work. So in those stressful days of, for whatever reason, Friday, Saturday nights, I go to the gym after, and that's how I deal with my stress. On my days off, I'm focusing more on house renovations and like nature walks and meditation, things like that, which again, Pathways has helped me find how to deal with those stressful times in a healthy way.
And would you then accept that you had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol prior to making those changes?
Yeah, it was easier. It was easy to just grab a beer or something to push those feelings away. Yeah, 100%. And sometimes you got to hit a bit of a rock bottom to realize how bad it gets. It's a slippery slope. But yeah, it's been and then dealing with like panic attacks and things like that when I first gave up alcohol. Yeah, it's a rocky road, but yeah, you feel so much better without it that it's totally worth it.
One point I'd like to touch on is paragraph 9 in your affidavit, there you talk about the likely consequences should you lose your managers, and this is perhaps expected to tell this in more detail and depth. But if you were to lose your managers who will not have it renewed, could you speak to the flow-on effects that would have for you personally and why afterwards?
Absolutely. I'm by circumstance the breadwinner of the house. A house that we bought about 3 years ago that we're in the process of renovating. We had to get a fixer-upper, as they say. And if she wouldn't be able to, if I lost a substantial part of my income, which was likely, she wouldn't be able to afford it with just her work. She would either need to get a second job. I would need to get a second job, probably both, just to float that mortgage. So we didn't have to, most likely at this point in the house, sell it for a substantial loss.
Thank you. I've got no further questions for you, but if you remain seated, there will have questions.
Thank you.
Yes. Ian, Mr. Keno, would you just explain to me the reason why you let your manager certificate that was issued by Masterton? Why did you let that?
When I originally, because I was working at Screening Room and St. Sebastian, that's when I first got my manager's license. So I was renewing it through them before where the original came from. Is that the question?
So you had that license. Why did you let that lapse?
Oh, bag organization. I didn't realize that it lapsed. I used to get emails or phone calls, and for whatever reason, I didn't. Not to push blame, it was my own fault. I just lost track of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kia ora. Just quick questions. One is, how many children do you have?
I don't have any.
Yeah. So how do you marry your own experiences of alcohol and working in an industry that promotes alcohol consumption?
I grew up with alcohol, so I understand the combination with food and alcohol, tasting, as well as culturally. I am Italian in heritage, so growing up having a glass of wine with dinner and stuff like that was very normal, very normalized.
So you feel quite comfortable knowing that you're unable to drink yourself, but you can continue to work in an industry. You say you enjoy beer. See the process of making beer. You feel quite comfortable working in an environment knowing that you can't drink.
Yeah, I understand the place where it belongs and as a flavor, as a sensory thing rather than a numbing agent.
Are there any opportunities for you to taste, to check the beer, or?
It's, yeah, I can't actually abstain because it is part of the job. But the difference between having a sip of beer and having a full beer is easily different to me, because I have to be able to describe the beer. I have to know if it's good, if it's like, has it gone bad, how it changes through freshness. I have to keep those senses up to par.
So how do you deal with that in your working environment in terms of tasting the beer and then obviously having to go home?
Never anywhere close to when I would drive. So how I've dealt with it to this point, if the brewery closes at 8, nothing after 4. So I would taste something early if a new beer came on. And also smell has more to do with it than taste and consumption. So you smell 200 different scents, you can only taste 6.
So just to clarify, you have to drink as part of your role at work, but you have an issue, you agree that you have an issue with excess alcohol.
Yes.
Would you say that you could be a risk in that space, given the fact you have to consume some alcohol in your role, but you also have an issue with consuming alcohol?
Yeah, again, it's a difference between tasting for tasting and tasting for consumption.
Your view?
Yeah, the difference between 30 mils versus 330.
So
15 mils, really.
agree that the advice is that if you're going to drive, you don't drink at all. Would you agree that that's a sensible?
100%. Yeah, and that's how I've been since I was on the limited license. Was the criteria, and I don't ever plan on changing that.
Where do you live?
Masterton.
You have to travel from Macedon to Martinborough.
Yep. And it's
Drink
always
during the day and then travel home?
not, yeah, if I do, it'll be a sip of the new beer. It's not not a full beer. And it's always, I've got a actual breathalyzer that I purchased, a personal one that I keep in the car, and I never drive if it's not 0. Has to be 100% 0. Hard rule, hard line in the sand. Cannot cross that.
The role that you can do at your work that would not involve tasting alcohol?
It could, yeah. So there's always that option of not trying it and using tasting notes instead of trying it and knowing firsthand. Yeah, there's always that as an option, and it does change. It's like having a chef not ever taste their sauces kind of thing. It's not impossible. Yeah, I can develop the smell more. Yeah, it'll just take practice.
Thank you, Michael. My questions.
Yeah, I've just got one question, a little more on your giving up alcohol. Do you have a support network around you? I know that you've been to Pathways. Is that still ongoing?
We got to a point that we were setting up like alcohol logs and like how much I've consumed and weighing my way off. And like I said before about the healthy avenues, got to the point that it was she didn't feel like it was necessary for me to keep going in as long as I follow the guidelines. And I feel like I have been. Besides that, my wife has been a huge support in all of it. And I went through part of the journey with some friends that needed to give up too, that they, with support to me, also given up alcohol.
Are you a member of any ongoing support group for alcohol addiction or?
Not official. Yeah, it would just be a support with friends and family.
Because I note in the submission for Pathways here that talks about a sort of email check-in and things. Is that still ongoing?
It's waned off since it's been uneventful for so long that it's been less and less. It went from weekly to monthly. Now it's quarterly.
And then you also talked about 2 days a week alcohol free. So how many days a week do you work?
I work 4 days. It's more than that now. It started at 2 days and now it's 4 days alcohol. Yeah.
How many days a week do you work?
4.
Okay. That's all I have. Any others? Okay. Thank you very much. See. Oh, sorry. Do you have any other questions? Clarification?
Just one point in re-examination of this. The chair asked you, is there any ongoing support? And you said, was those emails with check-ins were weekly, then monthly, then quarterly. So is it fair to say there is wraparound and ongoing support through the quarterly email, but also you know that you could, that's a leading question, that could you explain if you were having difficulties, what you would do?
Oh, yeah, it's the door's open. Like I said, if it got to the point that it was just saying like everything's all good, so it's so that's why it's brought down so much. But if it starts to ramp up, yeah, not only through Pathways, but they've also given me other counselors emails that if anything slips, doors open, call them immediately or email.
So it's fair to say there is a support.
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Should you with
100%. Yeah, 100%.
further?
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to call Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I only have a very brief question for Mr. Patel, which would, I think, be very helpful for the committee, just expanding on my point that I've spoken to.
Okay.
Today.
Mr. Patel, would you like to
Make an affirmation.
Please state your full name for the record.
Mr. Patel.
Do you solemnly, sincerely and truthfully declare and affirm that the evidence you're about to give touching the matters before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Patel. If you can answer some questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. I've been committed to just leading frames and
Yes. Yeah.
you filed an affidavit where you say in paragraph 5, if Michael were to lose his manager's certificate, Joel already injected certificate is essential for him to carry out the responsibilities and for our business to operate lawfully and efficiently. Meeting this morning in the discussion, I just want to be crystal clear with the committee. And it's not that it's obvious that someone needs a manager's certificate to be a manager. That's the whole point. It's not necessarily that Mr. Catania would lose employment with you, but he would obviously lose that role. And you spoke about having to reapply for at least a role, essentially barman or barhand or something like that. And the lesser income that would go with that and potentially the lesser hours. So could you just explain that to the committee?
Sure. One of the requirements for managers, operation managers, to have a manager's duties license. If you don't have the license, you don't have that title. Now, if Mike was to lose that license, chances are he's going to lose that title. Losing that title means going to another job, which means less hours, probably part-time, and less pay. There's no doubt about that. So those two things will definitely, most probably happen if he was to lose his license. And then because it's part-time, it's very seasonal in the brewery. So in summertime, you probably get more hours, but wintertime when we do close, definitely there'll be a cut in hours.
That was the main point that I wanted to just clarify. Affidavit file, but while you're sitting there, Mr. Patel, could you just briefly explain and expand upon your experience while working for you as role as operations manager?
Yeah, sure. So Mike's been with us for about 3 years now. Nothing but great things to say about him. He's a great person, great man, great character. Never had any employment issues, no disciplinary actions, and he leads the team well. All the other employees look to Mike for assistance, and Mike leads them well, trains them well, and leads a great operation. I think Mike, when he was sitting here, he talked about growing the business and things like that. And one of the reasons we are growing the business is because of Mike. I mean, his vision is great. Like I said, he leads from the front. I'm an absentee owner. I don't live in Martinborough. I live in Hawke's Bay, so I rely on Mike for my business. Without him being there, chances are I'm going to have to move homes or whatever to run the business. I don't plan to do that. Hopefully, I don't have to. But yeah, he's the leader in the front of the brewery. We have someone in the back, but Mike is the one in the front.
I've got no further questions for you, Mr. Patel, but
thank you. It's nothing better than having someone who leads a business well and grows the business, no doubt about that. I'm quite keen to get a better understanding around the risk of tasting alcohol during working hours. And obviously, potentially not being able to fulfill his role. So would you be able to give us a little bit more information about that risk?
Yeah.
Continue in his role without having to taste, for example, or is it a real integral part of what he has to do?
No, it's not a requirement of the job. If that is an issue for Mike or for the committee, sure, I could get someone else to do that. When a new beer comes on, we're a craft brewery, so we're not like a regular, we're not like a TUI or DB. Our craft is in our beer. So someone has to taste it to make sure the lines are, clean enough, make sure the tasting's there and things like that. So if Mike wasn't to do it, I could get someone else to do it. Potentially, we're actually hiring a new person in a couple of weeks and should be more than capable of taking that role and responsibility.
That wouldn't be a demotion.
No.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we can move it to somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of leads into the question I was going to ask, that what are some, as the employer, what are some of the things you've obviously heard today that, and the questions of the panel with the risk and so on, as the employer, what are some of the things that you have or may well put in place to support Mr. Katana as he goes through this process? Because obviously alcohol and dependency is something that most people would say it's forever. It's a thing that never leaves you. So what are some of the things that as the business owner that you, if saying how valuable he is as your employer, that you can put in place to support him through this process?
Well, most of it's been emotional support, really. Just helping him along the way, any questions, any concerns he has, I'm there for him. Some of the other staff members as well. And, we don't encourage anybody drinking or driving or anything like that. And we never will, not just for Mike, for everybody. But yeah, like I said, it's just really emotional, supporting, hand-holding, and making sure he's not in positions that it's going to lead them to drink. I know we're a brewery, we don't drink on the job anyway. But yeah, like I said, it's just emotional, really. Supporting him, and we're there. I'm there all the time for him.
Thank you.
So, one more question. So can you just clarify that there is a difference between tasting alcohol and drinking on the job?
Yeah. Like I said, we don't drink on the job, but if you do taste, it's, you know, a little sip to make sure the smell is right, the taste is right. You get the right hop profile coming through and things like that. That's what tasting is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. This may be helpful. Just one further question, and may have been a question better directed to Mr. Catania. There's a jug of water there, Mr. Patel, and there's a glass. When you were talking about tasting, for the benefit of everyone in the room and the committee, could you just pour into that glass how much is required to taste a line?
Well, that's probably too much. Put it too fast. That's about half of that.
Could you just to, so we're clear, could you just get an exact ballpark?
Not that much.
So negligible.
Yeah.
And that I know also from experience in the wine industry that traditional wine taster might taste, say, 200 wines in a day at a tasting or something like that, and they spit. So they obviously don't become inebriated. Is that an option at a brewery too? Yeah. You don't need to, and this may sound obvious, but you obviously don't need to swallow something to taste it.
You're right.
Was that a fair comment?
Yes, it is. And also I want to add that we have new beers probably about once or twice a month. So this will happen once or twice a month. Not every shift, not every week. It's only when new beers come online.
It's going to be one of the questions. How many tastings would we expect a day?
Oh, not even per day. Summertime, it might be twice a month. Wintertime, you're probably not even looking at once a month.
Thank you, that helps.
Yes, that's helpful.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the licensing inspector's evidence. And what I just, if I could, you've heard what has been said before we go down it. You've heard what's been said and what's been offered and so on and so forth. So I would really, for the panel, again, we'd take your report as read from what you've heard today and the offers that have been made and so on. It would be really helpful to us that if you could perhaps comment on that side going forward and whether it changes potentially some of the things that you've put in your submission. Not suggesting that it should, but just if it has, now that you've heard what has been offered in the panel to the panel today. Okay. So Mayor, do you want to start off as an overall submission of where you stand, or do you want your inspector to take stand? And
thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy with the evidence brief that the inspector has provided that to be taken as read, and I think touch on points within that report. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to take chair and we'll swear you in?
Please state your full name for the record.
Festa Caramto.
Do you solemnly, sincerely and truthfully declare and evidence you're about to give touching the matters before this truth, the whole truth and nothing?
Thank you for this opportunity, sir. Just want to, on that question regarding has anything changed, unfortunately, I can't answer that at this point. I'll probably have to reserve that. But
okay, well, with that answer, then, do you want to take a short adjournment and perhaps consider that, because to come back, this is the hearing today, so it would be you know, to sort of reserve that comment. We're not going to have another opportunity for you to present back to us if you've changed your mind. So do you want to take a short adjournment so that you can talk amongst yourselves, and then perhaps if you were of that mind, it would be better that we get where you stand as a position now rather than reserving it for something, because obviously we have to make a decision on what's presented today. So happy to take a 10-minute adjournment if that will help.
Yes, Chair proposes.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute adjournment. Welcome back, everybody, and to those that might be watching online. Okay,
So to answer the, no, I haven't, I don't change my mind regardless of what.
so you're not changing your mind? Okay, so what are the points you want to highlight for us?
If I could just direct you to my brief of evidence, paragraph 20, case law there, which Craddock and Kuma says all the matters that the applicant committed. Again, all those discharged without conviction does not mean that the previous offences didn't happen. And also, if we could tie it back to the decision making at the time, which questions the suitability of the applicant.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or do you want to take questions rather than just?
Yeah, maybe we can.
Okay. Start with some questions. So. Okay.
So one of the criteria we need to consider is the manner in which the applicant has managed the sale and supply of alcohol. Indicated through your reports that there hasn't been relatively happy about how the applicant has managed the premises. You base that on what? On the compliance check history, control purchase operations, or
I'm basing his suitability more on his criminal convictions. It's not it's not particular to the premises. Is that the question?
You're satisfied that he's been managing the premises correctly, effectively, and legally?
I don't know how to answer the question because I haven't done a compliance visit to his premises.
Okay. So you're unaware of any incidents at the premises?
I'm not aware of that.
Just to clarify that point, your objection is based on 2 alcohol driving related charges, and the what was the third one? So what's the other one? The warning.
Reckless driving.
Was it the reckless driving warning? Was that the third?
Dangerous driving warning.
There was a warning, but no. There was a warning, but no. Is that correct? Or are you basing your objections wholly and solely on the 2 alcohol charges? You used the word conviction. There is no conviction. Okay, so there was discharge without conviction on both occurrences. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of the criteria we needed to satisfy ourselves with before we renewed our advice. So you are indicating that as an inspector, you haven't had an issue in the way that the premises have been managed by the applicant. Is that correct?
Again, I can't answer that question based on I haven't done any assessment on on how he runs the premises. What I've done is I've done a interview to assess his knowledge on the legislation, basically putting it back into the suitability. But in terms of him managing a premises, I don't believe I can answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. How would you describe the risk posed with the applicant being in the role that he is at work and his relationship with alcohol in relation as a whole in relations to the suitability of him being, of holding a manager's certificate?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How would you describe the risk? Yeah. If we were, say, a manager certificate was issued, what risks do you think would there be potentially? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand.
It's in relation to the suitability.
Yes.
I guess I don't want to say, do you think there are risks? I would like to know what kind of risk, what risks would you consider could be possible, the potential risk?
Potential risk is, as the applicant has mentioned, there is that history and again the pattern of behavior showing that basically that pattern of behavior led to these offences, even though it's discharged without conviction. Again, the fact is it happened. So again, if you drink and drive, if you're asking me how can I, if there is no future risk, I don't know the answer to that, but based on the records before us and the patterns of behavior, I think that would be the biggest risk that I can
Previous behavior.
And previous again, and also that pattern of decision making in terms of was that the best?
What level of comfort would you have if a managed certificate was issued? Would you feel comfortable?
Could I just ask a couple of questions from you? You heard in the opening submission by Mr. Porter about the unusual circumstances of the first offence. Are you aware of the prosecutor's view on that and the judge's comments on that?
I wasn't aware when I made the opposition. No.
Okay, but you are aware now?
I am aware now.
Okay. Do you have any comment about that in regards to your objection?
Again, even though it was an unusual circumstances, the fact of the matter is it did happen. So although I can't refer to him, but although what the applicant is saying is a victim of circumstances, though there is other way that offence shouldn't have happened in the first place. So based on that, I think my answer is still it hasn't changed my position.
You don't think the court might have taken those very things that you've just said into account when the prosecutor decided not to object to discharge without conviction and the judge agreed? Do you think that may well have been part of their reasoning?
I can't answer to that question to what the judges or the court has made, but that is a matter for criminal conviction. That does not mean that, again, like I'm pointing it out, because that led to a discharge without conviction. So whatever the court said is only a matter for criminal law. We shouldn't just look at just because the applicant had the discharge without conviction doesn't mean that we cannot question the suitability of the applicant.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that at all. And you've heard that the applicant is not denying that the incident occurred.
Yeah.
There's been no saying, oh, that didn't occur or whatever. Discharge without conviction requires a whole lot of circumstances to be taken into account It's not something that courts give away lightly, and it's certainly not something that I've seen in my time sitting on the bench that a prosecutor goes, "Oh, I'm not going to prosecute," or "I'm not going to object to a discharge without conviction," unless there are very good circumstances. Would you accept that?
I would accept that, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to turn a little bit to the 28-day suspension from Arla as well. And Arla has obviously reviewed the two incidents that you're talking about now objecting to. And in their judgment, they gave a 28-day suspension. What do you think that, it'd be really interesting to your understanding of a 28-day suspension rather than an outright cancellation of the license? Why would you do a relatively short-term suspension? Because they literally speak about character and in this suitable person, and yet they have come to the conclusion of a 28-day suspension as opposed to a outright cancellation. I just be interested in your view about how that, and that's on.
I believe that the case law was because it was an application for suspension rather than a cancellation. So that's why the 28-day suspension was there, as far as I know. And the matter before us is to renew the certificate. So sorry, I don't think I understand the question that you want to.
I'm trying to, you're objecting to the renewal of the license based on character.
Yeah.
And you're basing your objection on the two drink driving charges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Arla has heard the evidence on those two drink driving charges.
Oh, okay.
And has said a 28-day suspension, in their view, is all that is warranted. What makes, with their judgment, I'm trying to understand why you have gone the next step and said, actually, we don't want to renew this at all, given that Arla has already looked at the facts in this and come up with a judgment on a 28-day suspension, when they could have said, actually, we will cancel this and he's not suitable. Potentially, that's the outcome they could have come up with. So I'm really trying to understand why you want to go that next step.
Next step.
That makes sense?
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. So the reason why I'm still pursuing a cancellation is because the 28-day suspension is a suspension. It doesn't future-proof that this offence will happen again. And based again on the patterns of behaviour that the applicant has shown, even though the applicant is saying that, and I commend him for all his hard work to get himself to go through pathway, but that, to my assessment, again, that still cannot ensure that this incident will happen again in the future.
I'm trying to understand a little bit. So what is your rationale that you're coming up with the objection to a new license that with the same evidence that Arla saw and they didn't come to that same conclusion? Because if they had said cancel the license, then your position of no license would be would have precedence for it. Whereas they didn't do that. On the same evidence that you're looking at, they assessed the risk, and I'm assuming that's what they do, is they assess risk, and they said, yep, okay, with everything that's going on here, we're going to suspend it for 28 days and allow him to then carry on.
Right.
Whereas they could have said, no, full stop, cancel the license. Could they not?
don't believe I can answer that question because I believe the matter that was sent to Arlo was only for suspension. It wasn't applied for a cancellation, so not sure why. And probably maybe the police can answer
Yeah, I'll ask.
question. Yes.
I'm sure Simon is listening to the questions and will be able to answer those. He's the police officer of record of that.
As to the matter of why you're saying that the deals that the authorities didn't cancel the license at the time and went for suspension. Fortunately, I don't know what the application, whether it was suspension or whether it was cancellation. That's why I can't answer that question.
Okay.
No, just clarify so that in my mind I have a good understanding about the objection here. You're objecting not based on character, but on previous behaviour and the possible or potential risk in the future from that behaviour.
Okay, so that directly leads me into the next question that I have, and the evidence that we have before us from Pathways. Have you seen that evidence that was been submitted?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any comment on what Pathway has submitted? Because my reading says that the applicant is working positively to make these positive changes. This is what I'm reading in this document, and that if I'm reading this correctly, the risk is significantly less having gone through this process and all the changes that he is making. Is that a fair summary of that piece of evidence?
Yeah.
Okay, so my then question says, following on from what my colleague here has just asked, you're looking at it looking backwards, looking forwards, with this evidence and the evidence that's been submitted by the applicant. Are you still of the view that the past is a direct indication of what's going to occur in the future, given the changes that has been made in his behaviour and attitudes?
I think that yes, he did want to get himself sorted out with Pathways. As to the matter whether it will change, so the question, so could you repeat the question, sir?
Okay, so you've made your objection based on history.
Yes.
Since those offences, he's been through a review with Arla, and he's been through Pathway to work on his alcohol issues, and has made significant changes according to the evidence that's been presented in his lifestyle. Okay. So my question is, do you accept that those changes then change the risk profile that you've used your historical objection to going forward?
Yes and no.
Please explain.
Yes. So yes, yes, in the matter of sure he went the Pathway. He's done everything that he can do to change. But in terms of me answering no, this having you went to rehab. What's stopping you from doing it again? I just don't know if you could relapse or again. Because again, I can't say what the future will say. And based on his previous convictions. That's why I'm opposing. Sure, he did when he went to rehab. Sure, he attended these courses and probably may have changed his lifestyle. But again, the risk, you're trying. So for me to assess the risk in the future, unfortunately, I can't really say what will happen in the future. But because of the 2 previous charges that he's committed, it still doesn't negate the fact that he could potentially do it in the future. Does that answer the question?
Well, yeah, you've answered the question in your way. So that's great. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Apologies, I'm going to ask another question. Given the situation, would you consider that potentially people can change? There's room for people to change. We need. In what way do we help people demonstrate that they can change? I guess I just wanted to understand if you felt that there was a possibility that somebody could turn over a new leaf and
people can change. Yes, I accept that.
Do you consider that Mr. Katana in this circumstance has changed?
Just basing on what is provided, probably, but I can't 100%.
Nobody can be 100% sure, but
yeah,
on the balance of probability, do you think he has made every effort? And is there anything else that you would see that he could possibly have done? That he hasn't done.
Thank you. That's a better way of asking it.
I think as long as he continues what he's doing now, I think that and he doesn't relapse and go like bad decisions, then who's to say that he can't change?
With that answer then in mind, what the applicant has suggested is a truncated license with an undertaking and a statutory declaration that should he breach alcohol law in any shape, way or form, he would immediately surrender his license. Is that within something that you would say that with the changes, that's a fair and natural justice way to go?
Ultimately, that's the DLC's decision.
Absolutely, but well, I'm asking your opinion because you're the prime objector here. So, do you see that as a compromise, given the answers that you've presented to the questions that we've asked you?
I'd still say no.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Run. If you've got some.
Sorry, place your hand. Please state your name for the record. Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you're about to give touching the matters before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks, Rani. So you can either go through your submission and highlight the points you want to make, or you could potentially answer some of the questions that you've heard and give your opinion as to potential solutions to this. So I'm either way, whichever way you'd like to go.
Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. Look, I'll just start with a very brief opening statement. We've heard from the applicant and now the inspector. For the police, look, we do it. You speak up a little bit, please. For the police, we do appreciate council's statement or explanation regarding the applicant's first offence and how it was very unusual. But police wish to also emphasise the fact that the second offence of drink driving was not unusual. It's plain simple drink driving. No excuses. However, he did put his hand up on both occasions, and of course, you need to be had to admit to the offence for the process to carry on for a Section 106 discharge. Also, wish to emphasise that the alcohol level from the first drink driving offence was just under twice the legal limit to drive. And also the second occasion of drink driving, the level there was just over twice the legal limit for driving. Also, please point out to the committee that during the second incident of drink driving, this was during the probation period of holding the manager's licence. Well, I guess we're all aware that he had to get a new licence, and of course this was during that point of time where one must be at their best behaviour, and unfortunately this has happened. The police believe that though there is no guarantee that the applicant will re-offend, the two incidents in themselves do pose a higher than normal risk of happening again. But in saying that, of course, as council had mentioned, police are in the view of a truncated period. Starting point, I guess, 18 months, because I believe the starting point there dates back to the conclusion of the last period, I believe.
And we'll get a bit of guidance on that, but
yeah. So 18 months is the position where police are sitting at. Other than that, look, we're always hopeful that the applicant will have the better judgment in the future, but it has been clear that there has been a big number of, a couple of poor decision making. From the questions that you put across to the inspector, I was the officer there that had submitted the application to ALA for suspension, so cancellation was never on the cards, so therefore it was always going to be a suspension for the authority to consider.
I just interrupt while you're there and say, why did you go suspension and not cancellation?
So before I forget, that was all I was going to mention, and that I understand that my evidence can be handed up and is accepted as read. There are exhibits. Do I need to produce them, or is? Yes, I do mention that.
Have we got copies of those already?
It was included in the.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's here if it's needed, but if not, it's already in email format.
Yeah, no, we've got all that.
So I'll go back to your question. Sorry.
Yeah. So why suspension rather than cancellation?
So suspension was only given because this is the first time he had appeared before the authority. I know there were two offences there. I don't think the first one had been addressed before. hence the reason they were lumped together and put in. And of course, look, if he'd had a history, then and of course, if there's a history and higher readings, I would have also ticked cancellation and given the authority the choice of the two. But in this case, the applicant has not appeared before, or not before this. My application has been before the authority.
Thank you. I'll have some more questions for you. Is that all?
That's all I've asked on that. Yeah.
Manu, in Porter's letter, indicates the police opposition is based on 3 grounds: driving with excess blood alcohol on the 21st July 2022, written warning for careless driving for an incident that occurred on the 22nd of October, and driving with excess blood alcohol on the 9th of March.
Can you just give me a page number so I can refer to? 24?
Mr. Porter's letter.
There's numbering on the bottom of the
19 of 147.
19. If you could just your question again.
This is in reference to Mr. Porter's letter of the 3rd of February this year.
Yes.
Which he states the police opposition is based on these three grounds. That the first, excess of alcohol on 24th of July 2022, second one on 9th of March 2024, and a written warning for careless driving for an incident that occurred on the 22nd of October. So that's, as I understand, the police are in opposition on those grounds.
Yes.
But this report also goes on to say that careless driving or dangerous driving should be excluded from the consideration for this application. I just like to hear a bit more about it if we're able to. You know about that?
On this, yes, it was part of my opposition letter. So I'm not familiar with this pack. What's my opposition letter? Matt, please, the committee, can I just refer to my other notes that may not be included?
May I be permitted to make a brief comment and clarification of your earlier question?
Sorry.
The question was that there was careless driving or dangerous driving. Fine, but there's no suggestion of a dangerous driving charge. It's a careless driving.
Okay, yeah, no, that's very clear in your submission.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just worry.
And I think it should be noted there was no charge either on it.
No.
Look, I can only refer to my original opposition letter. I don't have a copy of the occurrence from the police national intelligence application here with me. So this is all I can give you. I'm not sure whether it is on the pack, but if I may read, it says Catania was issued a written warning for the offence of careless driving that occurred on the 22nd of October 2023. Police did not attend at the time of the collision and therefore drink driving could not definitively be ruled out.
I would just like to make a comment on that, that given that there was no blood alcohol level taken any suggestion that there was drink driving would be wholly inappropriate for the committee to take it.
Yes, yeah, that's the reason.
And also that there was no offence, whilst a written warning is in itself not an offence, given that it hasn't been proven in court. So it is one side of a story. So I think we've got to be very careful to take anything out of it.
I'm only answering the
No, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that here, that it's got to be very clear that that incident occurred, but has not been proven.
And also it is partly because, the reason why I did not include it in any of my brief. It was on my initial opposition letter. Councillors addressed that, and since then I have not addressed it in my brief, which was before you today. Okay. Yep.
Thank you. You appreciate that. Just one big clarification.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That sort of popped up there. Thank you.
I've just got one question for us. It's around, well, if you could please confirm the police's advice around drinking and driving, the official advice that police give out.
The two don't match, don't do it.
Is it like 0, or is there a level of?
So there is a level. The police have a Drager, which is a breathalyzer, and it's set to go off at 250. Okay, if you go over that, it's going to register alcohol. Of course, if you go over the 400 level, of course, that's the threshold for you being referred to the district court. But anything over 250 and under 400 can be issued with an infringement notice and dealt with a fine, and you do not need to go to court, which means you don't have a criminal history.
What's the official limit?
250 micrograms.
Twice the limit would be 500, you think?
Yes.
But between 250 and 400, you would still be issued with an infringement notice.
250 and 400 and under. Yep. Anything over the 400 would be referred to court.
Okay, thank you. It just helps me understand. Okay, thank you.
Right. Could I please ask, in your experience, is Section 106 discharge unusual?
No. The defendants have the opportunity to apply for this, but of course, as you've mentioned earlier, there are special circumstances that need to be considered by the judge to decide whether it's appropriate or not to issue that.
Are you aware of many cases where there has been 2 Section 106 discharges for drink driving offences?
I'm not aware of any that has come to 2 in a row. But as you may have read, that was like the last straw anymore, and it'll be a different matter. The judge would deal with it in a different matter.
And I'll ask the same question that I asked the inspector. You've seen the evidence of what Mr. Katana has done since the second offence and since Ala's suspension and the efforts he's gone to. Sorry, do you have a comment on that and on the risk going forward with what's been done?
As I mentioned before, that there's a higher than normal risk. I appreciate the applicant's what he has done since offending to give back to the community, help himself out. That would always go towards reassuring, I guess, police that it may not happen, but it cannot be guaranteed that it could happen. I've known people that have said that and then fallen into old ways. But in saying that, the undertaking that council has brought forward is appropriate for police. That is a fair call, and and also puts himself on notice that he knows what's at risk here. Because to surrender your license for a possible slip up is a big decision, but to have that down on paper and if he's willing to sign to it, and if you're agreeing to it, it is a commitment, and of course, yeah, I'm sure it's one that he won't take lightly.
So just to confirm, you'd be comfortable with the 12 months review period and the affidavit to surrender his manager's certificate should he breach any alcohol law?
I would prefer an 18-month truncated period, because if I believe a 12-month is in play, that would possibly mean that that period would end at November this year, which isn't that long.
Depending when we started the 12-month period from.
Yeah, depending on when you do.
Yeah, but given that he's just recently finished a 28-day suspension, yeah, okay, yeah, no, thank you. Right.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So there's no, there are no objectors and no third-party submissions to be seen. So I'm just going to call on closing submissions. So we will start with the inspector. Do you have any closing? Okay. So Moni, do you have anything in closing that you would like to take into consideration?
Look, I've just come off the off the bench. It's more or less what I mentioned in the beginning. The issue is whether to resolve whether the certificate is renewed or not according to section 2283. In order to do this, the committee must have regard to section 227. Police have opposed on suitability as well as matters dealt with in any report, and I'm referring to the ALA decisions. That was on the papers. There's nothing more I can say except for that. Yes, I've already mentioned it before, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
You like to make a closing?
Very briefly.
Yep.
I wouldn't talk too much today, and
Okay.
I need to abide by that. There is one particular point, and again, I apologise, I'm unfamiliar with the rules of evidence and the like when it comes to committees, but there's something that I could raise, and I'm sure the sergeant could confirm, and it may allay some concerns that especially one of the members raised, and it's when certain, you mentioned the Drager, and that's drive, put it in the window, please count to 10. That's the Drager system that's used by the New Zealand Police. Over 250, infringement offence. Over 400, criminal offence. It pays to note that nothing is triggered on the Drager device until it reaches 40. There's a margin of error in the Drager device. So if you were to have a 30ml sip of beer at, say, as Mr. Katana said, at midday, well, there'd be nothing registering at all. But say you had to taste off a tap and you had a 30ml or a 15ml sip of beer touched your tongue, and you were to drive two hours later, and you had 5 micrograms on your breath or something, it's not even going to register. Beside the point that it's completely negligible to any decision making or anything of that nature, it's not even going to register. So these are the quantities of alcohol we're talking about, which is why I asked Mr. Patel to pour it into a glass. It's built into the New Zealand Police testing system that they don't even trigger anything up until it reaches 40. So that's how limited the alcohol content is. And I know that's submissions from the bar, but that may just help to put things in perspective of the tolerances allowed with that particular device. And I know perhaps the chair may have some knowledge of that with his time sitting as a justice of the peace. But that aside, very briefly, just wanted to touch on a further point, which is that there is, with respect to degree of double jeopardy, in that Mr. Catania has been before ALA, which is in effect a higher court, if we could call it that. If he were to appeal a decision, that's where it goes. I accept the point it was a suspension period, that was all the sort, but I do know that they could have suspended him for a far longer period. They've settled with the minimum, which is 28 days, and that's provided over by a district judge, Judge Sphere, I believe, on that decision, and they had all the evidence for them and said 28 days is suitable, which we consented to and thought that is appropriate. Which brings me to the next point, is that the punitive nature that Mr. Catania has suffered shouldn't be underestimated. He's been through the court process. Although he very much enjoys doing the voluntary community work and continues to do it, that shouldn't be noted. But that's also a punitive element. The time, the stress, the fees, things of that nature. It very much has been that the process has been the punishment also. So if the committee saw fit to renew the certificate, it's certainly not like there hasn't been pain in the process for them. I also note that with all those submissions, I included very little raw in my submissions, and that's because the committee sits relatively frequently, and I found the judicial officers don't particularly like having screens of law being rammed down their throats when they deal with it all the time. But suffice to say that the Osborne 2-year stand-down period that is generally looked for, well, we're already in 18 months into it. This occurred in March 2024, and there hasn't been any hint of a slip up, no infringement offence, no speeding offence, no nothing. So we're only 6 months off period that would generally be looked for anyway had he been convicted. The final thing I wish to say is that Mr. Catania, with respect, and have come and given open, honest and candid evidence, and I say and make the submission that it's been very genuine. I think that was a man speaking from the heart. He wasn't trying to pull one over anyone. That's very genuine, honest evidence, and it takes, again, with respect, it takes quite a lot of confidence to come along, and a lot of you're in a very vulnerable position talking about addictions and talking about stresses and issues in your life such as those. And I think he came along and really spoke truthfully. So we're certainly not saying that he hasn't done wrong, he has. But in both situations, he put his hand up straight away and said, I've done wrong. And again, I just repeat what I said in my opening submissions to the committee. What more could he have done? Sure, the 20th of March, foolish. And no one's ever said otherwise, pleaded guilty in the first appearance. But what more could the committee, the police, the inspector, anyone ask of him than what he has done since that date, which is about 18 months ago? So there's nothing further I wish to add. There's certainly no legal submissions I wish to make. Probably who's right today. It's Mr. Catania himself. So thank you, ready for answering the question.
Right, thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of the official hearing. And look, I would just like to thank everybody who's participated today, and yes, I particularly you. It is never an easy thing to have to come up here and be your soul, and I appreciate the candor of which you have spoken. To this side, thank you very much, and for your consideration and your openness to review the evidence that we've heard today. So that's been really good. I think today has actually potentially shed some light on this issue that papers themselves don't do. So we've got a bit of discussion to have and a bit of talk to. We will get a decision back to you probably within 6 weeks, hopefully earlier than that. And on that note, I think we will ask Nerita to come and close our session. Thank you, everybody. The hearing is now closed.